Can you really please sit down now? I know that coffee breaks are always the most important at these conferences, but please sit down. And actually, for once, I'm asking you to get out your mobile devices. Please all get out your mobile devices, and you see the Slido here, the number, and this is really key now for this session. So for once, sit down, relax, and take out your mobile devices, because this is about voting. This is our mission stakeholder assembly, and where we really sort of, want to capture, I think that many of you are familiar with citizens' assemblies, and this is sort of our process of how we are actually sort of deriving from jointly voted results of this arena. So please sort of take out your mobile devices and put down that number. So we have to be really efficient here, because we are running the session until 5 o'clock and we have a lot of to-dos, and it's actually also a lot of to-do for you. This is about voting. You saw the action points in the program, and we actually will ask you to vote upon the action points, which have also been slightly changed and amended as the workshops have been going along. And you will always have the choice of, you have to make a choice of 3, your top 3 action points out of 8, because this is in times of reducing resources, also reducing financial resources. In the end, we are also fighting for the resources. As we said, of course, all the actions should be taken, but if we have to sort of make a choice, here we are asking you to sort of prioritize your top 3. So what will happen, in the next 1 hour and 10 minutes? So we will first have the voting on the action points. We have rapporteurs who volunteered to sort of really try to summarize the results of the workshops from the 7 themes we are accounting for. And then we actually have a discussion here, hopefully starting, early enough, because we have to finish at 5, with those who are in charge of programs running here in the North Sea or in Europe, and what is their connection to the mission ocean, and also to your action points. Because yes, we learned in many of our workshops in yesterday and today, we should actually talk about I do, but nevertheless, we also need somebody in general sort of to take these on board. The very first action point where we, I think, do not need one single vote is that I really expect you, North Sea people, to sort of walk out of this room and actually go onto the charter page and actually pledge for the mission charter. That is the first action point I'm calling you upon to do so, because we really do not have enough pledges from the North Sea. And I know that you are active. I know that you are very much engaged. We had industry, we had authorities, we had researchers in these 2 days here, but we don't see it on the charter. And please, there are other people who are not coming here, and they don't see what we are doing here, but they are looking at these kind of statistics. So this is your political first vote and your first action point. Thanks. Okay, and with that, I think we are starting the Slido and want to see how many of you have joined. Everybody should join, and we want to see who is in this room. So please, can we have the Slido on who's in this room, from which country are you coming from? I think that should be pretty fast, pretty easy question. So therefore you can also type it in very fast. So great, we have already 94 people, 96, because, you know, in terms of the electorate. Interesting statistic in the sense of, you know, that we are here in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, so, okay. Okay, well, I think that's already, you can still type on. So we have, because the most important figure here is that we have 118 here. And then we would like to know your background. How would you define yourself? Are you other, or are you, you know, somebody representing industry, a researcher, policy, transnational organization? Okay. So I think this is sort of something to note down, by the way, because it's very often claimed that this is here a scientific event. But no, I think it shows that we really have a multi-stakeholder process here, so that we do have also companies and clusters represented, as well as administration and NGOs. And I'm happy to see that we also have students here. Very good. Okay, then the next one. That is tricky, okay? So we don't ask you for your age, just in which age group you are. I'm in an age group where I actually still have to now recall when I was born, in which year, so to know how old I am. But, well, I think that's also very nice to see that we have actually also a quite young electorate here in this room. Great. Okay, and then very quickly, did you meet anybody here interesting at the Mission Arena? Well, I mean, you see there is also a bit of a trick on how to do these surveys so that they look positive. So, I mean, actually nice that there is a 0 with no, but okay. And then the very last one, did you sort of get any kind of inspiring ideas as a take-home, which you would really say, okay, I got something, I got an idea, which I would have not got if I would have stayed in a telephone conference, video conference at home, in my home office. It was worthwhile to come to Amsterdam. The 5 is the many, so great. Okay. Most important for me is that we have, 126 people there, and please stay on, because now we actually sort of enter the important phase. So remember, we had these 7 themes. We're talking a lot about multi-use, about nature protection, blue bioresources, governance, citizen engagement, business support, digital security. And, if you want, you can also, for those who are later on in the panel, that you may sort of, check a little bit what is now happening. And I would like to ask Alex Zimber from Deltares, who, by the way, Deltares being also one of the key sponsors here for this event in the BlueMissionBANOS. Alex, what was, the take-home, the action points, how have they changed on multi-use? And the Slido is open, and now really you have to do multitasking. While Alex is talking, you're expected to put down your top 3. Top 3. Okay, Alex, yours.
Great, thank you. So this was a redesign of the action points that also came from Marijn, Guinée, and Marjolein. They're moving. This is going to be tricky. The biggest one, as you see, and many people are agreeing with, was to simplify regulatory frameworks with clear licensing roadmaps and essentially one-stop shops. So not having to go to a whole plethora of different ministries or agencies to ask different questions with sometimes conflicting regulations, but in order to basically be able for different activities to go to one location where all of these people are there to then support you and answer any questions and fill out any licensing or registration that you need in order to get this done. The second was designate multi-use zones as a standard in policy and regulatory frameworks. So by this we meant multi-use shouldn't just be an option which you can consider, thank you very much, consider to ad hoc and then say we've considered this, we're going to move on because we prefer single use, but that it should be the first step and the preferred existing design, and only when it's not eligible, then you should go to single use. Also moving around. New tenders for blue economy activities can no longer, they're also different than this now, no longer a single-use approach and should always integrate multiple activities guided by national and targets and ambitions. By this we mean when opening up areas for exploitation or development, that these should always have in mind that multiple activities should be taking place in the same area. It shouldn't be a division of all the different activities or preferential treatment for one versus another activity, but from the onset, the objective should be doing as much as you can within a confined area, so that way you can preserve some of the other areas, both for nature and other exclusive activities such as shipping and what have you. Support for multi-use business models that enhance economic and environmental benefits and enable different blue economy sectors to work together. Addressing financial de-risking with insurance options. So again, for this, it's that there has to be work done on economically feasible and commercially viable business plans. When these are then being put into action, that it takes into account the intangible or non-economic aspects, such as nature restoration, environmental benefits, and social well-being. If there's any chance we could maybe skip to a little bit further up, because they can't? Oh, okay, so let's see. The other one that, lovely. Undertake baseline assessments on a basin level. So for this, surveys, monitoring strategies, and assessment of what can be most suitably located where should be done on a basin level and go across national boundaries. Therefore, the optimal locations for activities can be taken, and you don't wind up with a wind farm next to a marine protected area because there's a line that someone doesn't consider what's on the other side of it, thereby making neither of them as effective as they could be. Operationalizing this in the transnational planning of the North Sea, using examples such as GNSBI, which will be one of the speakers that will be on the panel, so I'm sure you'll hear plenty more about this if you haven't already heard in the different sessions. And provide public support for the necessary investments of upscaling multi-use solutions and large-scale installations, such as the Merry Park concept, which has been discussed yesterday and today, as being viable solutions to incorporate many of these different activities in one location.
Okay, I have to cut you short now here, Alex, because I think we have now 98. We give you 1 more minute in terms of doing the voting. We had 122 people who knew their age and where they come from. So therefore, perhaps if you have a, hand-on in terms of, it's your opinion. You don't have to be expert. This is, I mean, in democracy, not everybody is expert on everything, but therefore, we do have here this voting system. But okay, if somebody could show now what were the top 3, if you can move down, please. Again, okay. So the top votes were really on simplify regulatory frameworks and then actually designate multi-use zones as a standard in policy regulatory frameworks. We hear about Gebietspassports, etc. And then actually, what is interesting, that this should also be reflected then obviously in the auctions, in the tenders for offshore wind as a criteria. Thanks, Alex. thanks to you. And now we are moving to a very different topic. Or is it different? So we had, as a second theme, of course, also marine protection, nature protection. And I'm asking Marianne to sort of guide you to what was happening in the workshops, why the Slido is open, and please, again, your top 3 points. Mariana.
Thank you. I think this is one of the themes that got the most adaptations because there was such a great input in our 4 workshops, and we needed to integrate many examples and comments into it. So things like the North Sea Agreement, for example, being a great example of community-built decision-making and bringing many stakeholders from very different areas agreeing on different actions, or the stakeholder engagement in Belgium that together managed to have a joint long-term goal. Very good ideas like understanding what corporations want, what makes them tick, so then you change your narrative and know how to sell ecosystem services that fits to your conservation goals. And then in terms of MPAs, how climate change will alter the marine landscapes and how we need to consider that when protecting marine areas. Or avoiding that MPAs become the leftover of fisheries and offshore energy zones that have little value. So with this, I'm going to take you quickly through the action points in a summarized way so you understand it easily as we put a lot of text. Number 1, it's about the uptake of project results, research, innovative development projects into the national government, so they integrate it into policies. And that there is a cooperation in research, in stakeholder engagement, in data sharing, and so on. 2, create both incentives for sustainable industry practices, but also a thorough policy enforcement approach for a lack of compliance with all those joint cross-sectoral long-term agreements on sustainable marine use that are coming from that first point on the cooperation of stakeholders. 3, increase funding for marine protection and restoration and for nature-based solutions, and support innovation in technology and also apply innovative funding approaches. 4, educating policymakers, legislators, and the public so we can see a reduction in the regulatory barriers on restoration efforts. Apparently, this is a big thing here. 5, align the prioritization of protection and restoration areas among the member states to facilitate the management and the regional cooperation on nature-based solution, on restoration efforts, and on conservation. 6, have local and regional cooperation, as well as public consultations. And 7, broaden the stakeholder inclusion. So don't only focus on the key stakeholders, but also on citizens or on the representation of all groups, with a special attention on the ones that are usually underrepresented, and empower communities. So make them see that they have the power to influence decision-making. Now you have the rest of the time to read them again very quickly and then vote on your priorities.
Thanks, Marianne. Okay, there's a clear message here in terms of the funding, increasing the funding for marine protection and restoration, as well as that R&D project results should really be taken up by national governments and sort of be integrated into the blue economy sectors, but then actually also creating the incentives for sustainable industry practices. So quite sort of economic here also and policy oriented. Very interesting. Okay, I think with that, I know this is a tough session because this is only our second theme and we have 5 to go. But that's why we go to one which is sort of perhaps a little bit lighter in a sense, so that even though it's tough, but you know, there is also the enabler, and one of the key enablers is always citizen engagement and education. So where is David to guide us through the action points when it comes to citizen engagement and education?
Thanks, Angela. Yeah, we had 3 really interesting sessions over the last couple of days in terms of citizen engagement. Some of the key themes that came up over the last couple of days were increasing the diversity in terms of the people that we're reaching and engaging in activities like this and in general across the marine sector. There was communicating in more kind of using diverse voices and diverse media so that we're reaching more than the usual suspects. Supporting uptake of blue economy jobs, especially with young people, things like this. Oh, and ocean literacy, supporting ocean literacy both inside and outside of the classroom, just recognizing that not all children experience school in a positive way and that there's alternative ways of educating as well. I might also just say, and a special thank you, we put a lot of effort in to get some students into our groups in the last couple of days. And they've engaged really well. And I asked them before the session to maybe just comment quickly on what they really liked about engaging with a group like ourselves and what they enjoyed and what they found challenging. So maybe just to feedback quickly. They really enjoyed the social element and the practical element of the workshops. They commented that sometimes that we can use quite specialist or high-level language, and that's an accessibility issue if we're trying to get alternative groups in. Yeah, and they also agreed, I suppose, that we should concentrate as much as possible on kind of practical, systematic, stepwise solutions as opposed to utopian or dystopian visions generally. But I hope that sums it up well, and thanks again. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'll let you continue voting, and we'll see what comes out on top.
Thank you. Isn't it nice to be silent at a certain point? I'm just waiting for the last 2, 3. Perhaps we reach 100. Okay. Yeah, with that, I think I move to the 3rd theme, the so-called blue bioresources. Because we talk about multi-use, but of course it's also important to talk about this secondary use we have in offshore wind parks and which may actually also sort of be a single use. Why not? Eftaye, you are our blue bioresource queen. Please guide us through quickly.
Quickly. So building up on what we have already been talked about, we agree fully with what we have already presented. We have 4 very nice workshops on the topic. In the time of greenwashing and in the Green Claims Directive upcoming, we have identified that a lot of sustainable production and consumption needed in the future. So we would like to increase the sustainability performance and quantify how sustainable our systems are. So we are suggesting harmonizing life cycle assessment, environmental life cycle assessments, for developing more robust, transparent, resilient and pragmatic standards that they will be achievable also and applicable to SMEs and startups which don't have the capacities to do a full cycle LCA, for example. But it's also very interesting because for example, the aquaculture sector, like the algae or mussel sector, are usually small sectors, so there are not many people that have the capacity to, either the resources or the capacity to invest on that, but they need it. And we need it because it's also, if it's low trophic and product developments, we need to be secure that when we say something is sustainable, we are data-driven, decision making there. On that, we would like also to say that we need more modeling and more data for biological pathways and to identify impacts, both positive impacts, like ecosystem services, for example, and what means that when it comes to low trophic aquaculture or fish production and so on, and what are the negative impacts when it comes to environmental performance and operational performance, when it comes to carrying capacities, like negative impacts and carrying capacities, and positive impacts connecting with ecosystem services opportunities. It's really blowing here. Yeah, what else we need? We suggest that sustainability goes first, if it hasn't been clear already. So we would like to have more design ecosystem approach in maritime spatial planning. So we will have areas designed for aquaculture, including multi-trophic aquaculture and also multi-use, considering environmental ecosystem carrying capacities, not only physical carrying capacities or production carrying capacities. We would like to have the biodiversity as a core prerequisite for sustainable blue bioeconomy in the future. We would like to have prioritized economic diversification of sustainable production of blue resources, meaning we're talking about low trophic aquaculture like mussels, oysters, and seaweeds that are relevant for this region, but also we have fish and algae on land. Don't forget the blue on land.
Oh, yeah?
I have
to cut you short because the audience is faster than you. So we have already 103 votes,
Fantastic.
And because we have a fantastic panel also, and want to, also debate about the algae initiative, I think simply cut you short.
I'm very
here.
happy that we have the zero waste practices. You didn't forget it, even I didn't even mention it, but zero waste practices are needed.
Okay, thanks a lot. And one can see that we have such an informed audience after all these workshops that, they're really fast and take on. So that was the blue bioresource part. And now we come to, of course, the governance part. We have heard ecosystem-based MSP is wanted, better licensing. So what is the governance part behind the mission? And this is with Marjolein, one of our hosts here in Amsterdam. Marjolein, please.
Thank you. I'll try to keep it short. I think with the 4 workshops that have occurred during those 2 days, I can summarize it basically into a couple of points. One is the need for better collaboration at several levels, both internationally, more a sea-based approach, and also the need between collaboration and sharing of knowledge between stakeholders. It's more of an approach at a sea basin level to tackle the ambitions under the Green Deal together, but also not to be reinventing the wheel by ourselves, by our own countries, by our own stakeholders, but also to share knowledge altogether. The need for data has been mentioned as well, therefore a transform platform where scientists and politics can meet and discuss, but also the need for translators, so to speak, so we can understand each other, because we may not always speak the same language in a sense. It's not per se English. I think that is the main part within the governance aspect, and also the need for a better kind of within the regulations, the possibility to be more flexible, to adapt to new initiatives and innovations in order, for example, for new aquaculture startups to be having the chance to start as well. I think that kind of sums it up. And considering I still have time because it's only 40 people, so I'm not faster than you at this time. So that's good. So I think with the GNSPI, I think is one as mentioned as part of it for better collaboration at a sea basin level between partners and between countries. I think it was the main aspect within the governance.
Okay, but I think we are sort of discussing later on, but the sea basin approach really sort of, comes through here. So.
Yes, we have it come up also, I think, in other workshops and other teams as well, but you see this kind of need for cooperations, for seeking knowledge transfer, also to other projects. It's out to get out of our silos, the need to get out of our own bubble, because in other places they may start also new cooperation that also trying to deal with the same aspects of energy, how to tackle how to start with multi-use, how to reach the ambitions that we have set together, instead of being smart. Since also the North Sea is one system, we should also, this requires kind of a more comprehensive approach.
Yeah, I think that, in terms of the voting, we can see, it's still about better coordination also of MSP processes among the countries, and that it should really also exchange on the developments, not only the planning, but the developments in the EEZs, and then to have a governance structure with clear leadership responsibility. Okay, and that this is based on dialogues, perhaps dialogues such as we have here, and to create suitable regulations and financing instruments that are flexible and adaptable enough. Okay, to realize new concepts. I think that's also very important. So these are our top 3. Thanks a lot, Marjolein.
I think even the mention of a bus driver was mentioned as a leadership, so we have a new metaphor there.
Okay, thanks. So with that, we sort of go to our 2 final themes. So we have the governance, we have, where we also have a lot of, action points on incentives, on better coordination, leadership, bus drivers, but also suitable regulations and financing instruments. And with that, we are actually going to the business support level. What are sort of the demands, what are actually the needs of businesses, be it startups, be it the industry, etc. This is what we had a lot in, I think, at least 3 or 4 workshops, which we're debating on that. And Marijn, please, if you can sort of present what was going on in the workshops.
Thank you, Angela. Well, I will just maybe start with highlighting the differences with the action points we had. For business, it's basically legal assistance and IP protection. So that's the second one on your list. And then the 5th one is a very important one, that we need the established sector, which is energy, but also fishery, shipping that is around, to have like the new sectors to connect to them. We need them as an engine actually to have this innovation happening. We don't want like the sea monopolized by people that are already there. I think that's a very important one. And then all at the bottom of the list, the 7th one is about trust, creating trust in communities of practice, workbenches, whatever you call it. We need to collaborate. We need to actually talk to each other, because we use the same words like ecosystem or whatever, but we mean something else. So that's maybe the most important points we have changed in our actions. We have only 47 people voted, so I can go through the list, Angela. Yes. Simplifying regulations, I think that's a typical thing. It's far too complex for many of our businesses. Then the second one is on the legal assistance and this IP protection that I already mentioned. Then flexible funding instruments, very important also, including incentives for ecosystem restorations. We think of biodiversity credits, but also tendering mechanism, as you already mentioned, Angela. Then also training programs, of course. We need more people that are trained actually to enter. That's also what we see at the Blue Cluster with our companies. They lack actually people that are trained, that can actually boost the sector. So the sector is somehow ready, but we lack people that join us. So that was also already mentioned by David. Then the 5th one is on the established sectors, as I mentioned. The 6th one is also on awareness. We need also the consumers to understand what is going on. So that's on marketing. And then the one on trust was the last one, creating trust with our COPs. And then we have 95 people, please. I also want to have 100 votes, at least for our business part, because it's a very important one. 96? Come on. The 20 people asleep? Okay, almost there.
But I think it also shows consistency, because we do have these 7 themes. And then we always had sort of debates also in our working groups, well, because you see here, for instance, incentivize ecosystem restoration and conservation, which we of course also had under the theme of marine protection. But that simply shows that, you know, one single drawer doesn't fit, so we have to cross-connect the action points. And I'm happy that we see sort of consistency here also in voting, that we have, you know, again, regulation, simplify regulation, permitting processes as a first one. So not give us money, but actually sort of, you know, make it simply easier for us. And then, however, also to have flexible funding instruments, but also, John, listen, you know, to have test sites, demonstrators, market mechanisms, and to incentivize ecosystem restoration. And then, of course, also to have mentorship programs for startups. And with that, we are actually coming to our last theme. And that one is interesting because it's actually, yes, the digital twin data. Very often, you know, the scientists are saying we do not have enough data. So data is a normal topic, but what actually happened over the course of the BlueMissionBANOS implementation was that we also always try to listen to our stakeholders, and that security was coming up more and more as a very important topic. Recently, I heard in a workshop on multi-use where we were discussing that, yes, if you let all these people into our offshore wind parks, we had already cases that, you know, it was not the right person in whatever boat which was coming in. So, I mean, we do have these new issues coming up, but it's not me to talk. So, Franz, please, you are the rapporteur for not only one workshop, which was on security, but many workshops which were also about data. Thanks.
Thank you, Angela, and very happy to be here. And as you said, this is a new theme. And we had one workshop on digital twins of the ocean, and then we had one workshop on collaboration in relation to marine infrastructure. And before I go into the action points, because we had a question in our workshop, which I thought was very interesting. So we were talking about the security situation in the North Sea compared to other sea basins in the EU, and how serious it was. And I think one quote that I remember was that was a panelist saying that there may be other incidents in other sea basins. For example, in the Baltic Sea, there's been some incidents lately. But the amount of critical infrastructure in the North Sea is very high and maybe expanding, so that makes the North Sea quite vulnerable and makes this topic very interesting to talk about in this context. So going into the action points, we had some minor changes in the action points related to security. So for the first action point that changed, so basically the panelists said the technology is already there, but there's not a technological gap, there's an implementation gap. So we need to come together, both the ones that implement the technology and the ones that use the technology or use the data come together and understand how can we actually use this data. So there's a need for new applications in order to use the technology that can be implemented. So that was one of the very interesting takeaways. And then we were also talking about security in relation to safety. Now we focused a lot on security, but safety, for example, collisions at sea is also very important. And these two topics are intertwined. So we updated action point number 5, I think it is, to include safety as well. I can go on for a little bit, I think. In relation to digital twins of the ocean, there was an action point that was replaced. So previously there was an action point related to fair data, but I was in that session as well, and there was a comment which I think made it into an action point that related to data collection. So I think it stressed the need that there needs to be good data into these models in order for them to work in the way intended. So the action point related to there's a very strong need for more data collection on a European level, both in relation to biological, geological, and socio-economic data. I think that's it. Yeah.
Thanks, Franz. And I think, we are just hitting the target that, because I said to our last panelists that we really will sort of start it off at 4:30. So I think we have all done collectively very nicely. So just to repeat, that now when it comes to data, 87 people said, still enhance collaboration cross-border to improve security in critical infrastructure. That's a real new one. That's not on data. And then in terms of data collection, sort of a need for consistent data collection. I think that's very often sort of a frame we hear. And yeah, implementation of technological innovations. Thanks, Franz. And now we come to a very nice intermediary step, while I can ask my panelists to sort of, come on stage. We actually have the pleasure, because yesterday morning I presented that there is a tall guy here who was sort of secretly coming into your workshops, etc. And you all know that one picture says so much more than these 1,000 words we have here. And that's why we always have a visual recorder. Jeroen, can you please sort of show your picture and how you have done it? Very quickly, can we have the film on what was going on? Okay, that's the final. Can we have the film? Yeah. And you, please comment.
Yeah, I visited a lot of very interesting workshops. However, very quickly already I searched for the bigger picture. I hope that I did your ambitions rightly in the drawing, and if it does something, that I hope it makes you even more enthusiastic about what you're doing.
Okay, thanks a lot. And of course, and I think, the beauty is nowadays that these things are done on iPad. So if you still say now at 5 o'clock, Jeroen, there's something missing here, or it's wrong, or whatever, you can still even take the opportunity to come here. This is your only opportunity to still sort of, have a little change in that picture. But that's the only one. And of course, you will get it when we are sort of closing the session and when we are coming back to you digitally. With that, I would really like to ask my panelists to come up here on stage. Please. So, and I'm Angela, so if I can ask if we can sort of be with first names. So if I can ask John, Frode, Olivier, Eve, and Maris to come on stage. And it's actually, I don't know whether I do something wrong here. So if you may sort of, if you have forgotten, or if you are sort of wondering what we were doing at this arena, you just look at the picture, and then it may sort of help you to sort of sum it up. So this is a difficult one. No? I mean, we had really sort of tour de force through the action point voting, etc. It was a pleasure that some of you were really sort of here also for the 2 days. Some of you joined today. And please, I would simply like to sort of take a round in terms of what are your take-home messages, that you also explain a little bit from which kind of process here in the North Sea or Europe you are coming from, and how you sort of may interlink with the mission and what has been going on here at the arena and the action points. And I think women first. If you want to sort of start. And please
Is this on?
Introduce yourself and where you are coming. I mean, what kind of process is standing behind you, etc. Yeah.
Yes. So my name is Eve Silver, and I work as a secretary for the North Sea Council, which is basically the multi-stakeholder platform that is implementing the North Sea Agreement in the Netherlands. So I work at an independent secretariat supporting the independent chairperson of this council. So not taking any specific perspective, but trying to bring all the interests, all the perspectives together into one room and see if we can reach consensus on the way forward for marine spatial planning in the Netherlands. So I joined today, so I wasn't here yesterday, but I joined several workshops today. And what I like to see also here in the action points is that people find it important to not just work at the national level, each trying to come up with solutions, innovations, approaches at its own within its own country borders, but really trying to make the international approach to international collaboration more important. So, because I see also in the North Sea Council that sometimes in this collaboration we're trying to find solutions between the actors at the North Sea, but sometimes it makes more sense to look beyond the border than to only have a focus on your own little patch of the sea. So I see this difficulty, and I think this is also recognized within the North Sea Council that what they are doing, they're happy with the collaboration, but they also see a need of, bringing it beyond the Dutch borders. So I'm happy to see that also here in the action points.
And can I just have a question in terms of what you experience with stakeholder voices, etc.? Do you see any kind of surprises on what was voted now here, or is it very similar to when you have your stakeholder processes in the Netherlands as such?
Well, surprises, no, but maybe something that I noticed is in the stakeholder engagement workshop this morning, that when we talk about stakeholders, we need to have a clear view on who do we mean, what is the group that we are talking about. There was mixed talks about the wider public that we want to engage and raise awareness about what's happening in the ocean, at sea. By the way, I like the word ocean literacy. I didn't know that word, and which is something I take with me. And on the other hand, we have the stakeholders that have an interest in the sea, because that's where they work, that's where they live from, that's their mission to protect the ecosystem. So that's a different group of stakeholders. And I have to admit, I work obviously with the latter, the stakeholders that are their business is at sea, their mission is to protect the sea, they design policies for the sea. But the wider public is something that at least the North Sea Council is at the moment not approaching. So that's maybe another action point to ourselves.
Thanks, Eve. I think we could go on talking, but I always see the clock here running, and you mentioned collaboration in the North Sea, and therefore, of course, the next one I would like to ask is Olivier, and thanks for stepping in for Jan Hensman. Olivier, you were actually, we heard it, the big elephant in the room, the JNSBI, Greater North Sea Basin Initiative, and I think there was a very important meeting just before our mission arena in Antwerp. Olivier, please tell us a little bit about the Greater North Sea Basin Initiative and also how you see the connection to what we are doing with the mission and here at the arena. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Indeed, it's a great opportunity, very timely to be here today. So I'm Olivier Dufourneau. I'm from the French Ministry of the Sea and Fisheries. But maybe most important, I'm the co-track leader for multi-use within the GNSBI initiative. And we had last Monday a very important ministerial meeting in Antwerp to really launch the official initiative. We've spent 2 years trying to define what the key topics might be of this collaboration, to basically make the most of the North Sea, have a common approach, a better approach to the North Sea, boost blue economy while safeguarding marine ecosystem. So very well aligned with what has been addressed today. And it is timely because that's exactly the moment when we switch from our, I would say, internal thinking to reaching out to the stakeholders, making it common, real, having this full scale cross-border and cross-sectoral discussion, and one of the very important feature of GNSBI from the start was to try to complement the existing fora and not replicate anything. So building on what has been done in the past years, on what you have done in the past years to develop this connection, to build trust, to have very concrete projects is very important for us. And even if GNSBI is country-driven and includes countries that are not member states of the EU. We are very lucky to have the European Commission as a strategic partner. So connecting both with the Blue Economic Partnership and with Mission Ocean, and of course specifically with the Blue Mission BANOS is very important for us. And to get really, and that's what I take also from the polls that were just launched there, is to understand what are the priorities, what are for the businesses, for the other stakeholders, what are the challenges precisely, and identify where we need to work together among the 9 countries of GNSBI to address them. And it's very important to see and to hear that there is a demand for best practice alignment. That's exactly what we want to develop. A common approach, of course, still based on national processes, but trying to see what this common future for the North Sea can be.
Thanks, Olivier, and perfect in time. With that, I would like to move further. This is not a sea basin initiative. This is an European-wide initiative, EU Algae. Maris, we heard about blue bioresources, life cycle assessments, ecosystem-based approach, then MSP, move towards a zero-waste approach, etc. Where do you see the connections between Mission and EU Algae?
Yeah, thanks, Angela. Yeah, indeed, I'm in DG Maritime. I'm coordinating Blue Bioeconomy file and also the EU Algae initiative, where we are now in intensive phase of implementing it. It's really and also important to mention that we have established a quite big collaborative platform, European Algae Stakeholder Platform, EU for Algae, that is our really interface towards the algae sector. And that accounts 1,000 members at the moment, and we really closely work together with them, bottom up, really trying to support the algae sector developments in Europe. It's important to acknowledge that we are speaking about a sector that is negligent at the moment. So our objective is really to bring it forward. If you ask what are the links between the Mission Ocean and the initiative, so we know that the overall objective of Mission Ocean is to restore our waters by 2030. And this is where algae sector and low-trophic aquaculture exactly steps in. So also, if we put it in broader context, if we would like to be carbon neutral by 2050, we need to develop new business models. We need to develop sectors that remove more carbon and excess nutrients on the way of developing products than they emit. And this is exactly, where we need to develop these new business models, that is regenerative aquaculture, that is ecosystem restoration as business models. And these, if I look at the responses today to these 8 action areas, in my subjective view, we are moving into that direction. So that there are already quite a lot of initiatives into that direction. Of course, we still have the problems with the licensing, with red tape in governments. But this is exactly where we work together with national authorities. As regards algae initiatives, so we are having really very close contacts with national authorities to facilitate licensing, to facilitate access to space, to maritime space for the low trophic aquaculture, and this is what is much needed. And of course the business support mechanisms and data, and we had discussions on several workshops here today that are looking into closing these gaps and identifying specific solutions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And perhaps we can also find a way of getting those stakeholders from the EU for Algae stakeholder forum to sort of, get also onto the mission implementation platform and to sort of, have their take on that they're really supporting the algae, the low trophic aquaculture sector. Yeah, lots to talk about. There will also be an algae summit coming up next year. So, those who are algae enthusiasts and, combine it with mission, I think there is also something coming up. With that, I would like to move to Frode. It was a pleasure that we really joined forces, that we integrated the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership North Sea workshop into the mission arena. This is also an innovative process. I hope it was also for you a successful experience, that you can reach to even more, and that actually also in the other way around, that people sort of, got to learn more about the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership. Frode, how do you see the links between mission, your program? What did you get? What kind of inspiration did you get from this event here? Perhaps also in the design of your new calls, etc.
Yeah, thank you, Angela, and thank you first of all for letting us do this together. I think it's been an excellent experience for us. You said in the opening speech yesterday that you are bringing the mission out to the regions, and that's exactly what we are trying to do now with the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership. We are bringing it out to the regions. We have already had regional workshops in the Mediterranean and in the Black Sea, so this is the third one in a row of 5. We will have in the Baltic Sea and for the Atlantic Ocean first half of next year. It's nice to come here because there are a lot of old friends and colleagues, but it is also very nice to come here because there are a lot of new friends and colleagues to make. And that is one of these values of doing things together, that we bring together different groups. We have a bit different stakeholders, but we need to work together to create the momentum for the ocean that we share. And we need to be open when we do that. And I think it's interesting what you said about ocean literacy, because someone else said that in one of our sessions, that I feel like I've come into a bubble where you speak a language I don't understand. And I can totally understand that. And it's really important that we are able to shape these events in a way that that are inclusive, and that we work together and take in new actors and align our activities. And then I think that the timing for this was quite good, because it's nice that we were here as the new commission was approved, and this new commission will come with new priorities. But we have already seen that with the Draghi report has kind of set the standard that there will be a reinforced emphasis on European competitiveness, and that I think that all of us here, I know we were supposed to say I, but I think we have in common interest in making sure that the blue economy features high on the agenda when Europe takes the economic path forward. And then I think that John probably will also come back to this afterwards. The Ocean Pact was already mentioned in the opening by Kęstutis, and I said a bit jokingly in one of the governance sessions yesterday that I sometimes miss a master plan for explaining how the different initiatives and priorities are coordinated or how they are linked. And from what we've heard so far about the Ocean Pact, maybe this could be this holistic approach that can provide a sort of master plan aligning policy, regulation, and funding instruments, which is a lot of the things that we have been talking about today. And the last thing, if I might say one last thing, is that in the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, one thing that we put strong emphasis is in preparing our project for the next step. So one thing is the science that we produce, the knowledge we are producing, but what comes next? They have to be produce solutions that then have to be taken up by society, be it by the decision makers creating the regulations or the policy, or by the market producing new innovative products and services.
Thanks, Frode. And I think I will not ask a question now. I am also apologizing that we do not sort of frame these kind of sessions with sort of questions from the audience. I think there was so much talking, etc., over the course of the past 2 days that we sort of rather emphasize that we actually also want to close in time. And I think that also, you know, everybody knows each other here now. And of course, you can also have then questions bilaterally later on. But with that, I would like to sort of close the circle in a sense, because Kęstutis was yesterday opening our mission arena number 3, and it's my pleasure to have now the deputy mission manager here, John, to sort of close the cycle. And obviously I don't have to ask you about the connections between the mission arena and the mission, but so I mean, what do you see here from these action points? We had, you know, quite a good discussion over lunch, what these kind of arenas can do, what is sort of, you know, happening here, and sort of the future of the mission. Thanks.
Thanks, Angela. I've got 30 minutes, do I? You can put it down now if you like. It's not going to make any difference. Irish person coming through. Sorry, first of all, is to say, you've taken ownership of the mission. The mission is not an instrument or some bunch of suits in Brussels giving you some other funding programs. The mission is taking ownership of where you live and how we're going to transform the key thing that we've got to do in this generation, which is to make peace with nature and find a way of growing our economy and our society and our decision-making, and we can live with that. So what I see here, Angela, listening to people, is what a mission's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, for a start, ambitious and inspiring and challenging, and bringing everybody's knowledge to the table, and all these extraordinary organizations and processes and disciplines and countries and regions and stakeholders. It's a convening of people around a common desire to do something very, very difficult. It's to go to the next version of what the North Sea should look like by 2030, and to make it happen by committing to do that. I commend Angela for saying, you know, please sign the charter, not because you're being asked to sign up to a cult or that kind of thing, but because people are watching to see, do people care about the mission? And is the mission something? And the mission isn't about the money. It's about the people taking ownership and saying, this can help us to do all the things that's so brilliantly drawn here. So I think it is doing that. It's the beginning, I think, to talk about, Frode, you were talking about the Ocean Pact. You started to unpack the pact. Now you need to actually make sure between now and the 100 days when this is framed, that all the voices and all the expectations and the ambitions, not about what has happened, but what we need. The European Union is an ocean union. It doesn't realize it yet. And the ocean union is an opportunity to understand that our futures are defined by the most knowledge needed part of our life support system, our seas and waters, and everything that goes with that. So this is the moment where the European Union sees itself as an actual ocean union, in the way that we realized that we were living next door to Ukraine about 5 years ago. It's a way of understanding who we are, but it needs all of the voices in this arena, in this room, to be heard in the process of informing that pact. I'm very ambitious in this. I think the pact is the beginning of a really important journey and a redefinition of how the European Union thinks of itself. I come from a country called Ireland that thinks that it's actually a landmass that's populated by farmers and doesn't realise it's an island yet. But we're getting there. It's part of reconnecting with nature. It's part of understanding, putting ourselves back in our place, in our proper place. And again, this is the other thing, we were talking about this at lunchtime. Europe, it's not just an idea. It is mainly a place where people live and want to have a decent way of living. So this mission spirit is working. I see you're waving the clock at me again. I do wish you luck. I think there's some very practical things that have been said here that need to be thought about. I wanted to come back, David. I think wherever we meet, we must have intergenerational panels and intergenerational conversations. You must always have the generation in the conversation for whom all of this actually is going to make a difference. And listen, it's something we're trying to do. And you'll see there'll be big youth events and all the rest with the next commission. I hear governance coming back again and again. The sea basin governance angle, we were talking about this earlier on. I think one of the real deliverables of the mission is to work out a way of bringing all these extraordinary, you were talking about the Dutch North Sea agreement. I mean, all of us are in these different processes of coordinating in space, but we now have to do it in time and we have to do it in different processes. So let's make governance and what we think we need at sea basin level, it may not be the same in each sea basin. Let's use the mission to actually convene that, describe it, do it, and test it. Deployment is being talked about in different ways. The mission has, where I come from in Brussels world, it's defined by our lawmakers in different phases. We're moving from this kind of brainstorming phase into the deployment phase. The deployment phase means we need to start taking risks. The business case that was being made earlier on, we need to have places, sandboxes, large-scale demonstration and de-risking of things that are very difficult to do, like nature restoration at scale, like some of the things we're talking about in multi-use areas. And we need to bring in the people who have the money and the enabling conditions like insurers and so forth, and try and work out in a publicly protected way how we can actually develop what will be the next economy. In the way that when I was sitting in a meeting 20 years ago and we created these things called carbon credits, everybody thought we were completely mad. Well, in 10 years' time, there will be nature credits, there'll be different ways of it. So we need to use the deployment phase, give the businesses and the startups the space and the support that they need, and try and test and demonstrate at scale and be brave. We need our member states in the region and our neighbours. I'm glad you mentioned our friends and neighbours in the United Kingdom. We're working very closely with the UK and with Norway in Horizon Europe. So we need everybody on board and we need to find the ways to make that happen. And there's a huge amount of additional thinking and resource that can happen there. I was very struck by one thing, this has happened to me a couple of times, the secure seas. I was in Dublin at an event when a Russian oceanographic vessel turned up in the Irish Sea, not the Barents Sea, and it sat over Ireland's digital connecting cables between our data economy and the rest of mainland Europe until certain friendly neighbouring states helped it to find another place to do its research. So this issue of how we understand our place in the scheme of things and what we bring. I mean, security is in different ways: security of energy, security of food, security of data, security in the future of medicines, security of our economy. We are a coastal economy. We're working in the all-Atlantic context in terms of coastal resilience. We need to try and connect up these dots and what's the new narrative on security and how does it work for people. And last but not least, the communities that we talk about that are forming here. What you're seeing here is when we started with the missions, we talked about turning the sea basins into lighthouses. And that's what we're doing. What you see happening in this is knowledge and people and communities convening and turning the lights on the future, using knowledge to say, there's a pathway forward here where we live in our sea basin to security, to a climate future where nature is protected and our way of life and our economic activities can be done. So to continue that process, just to say you're very welcome to the Mission Forum for the whole of the mission at the beginning of March, 3rd to the 7th, and no pressure on the Danish presidency to conclude most of these things next year with answers to every single one of your questions. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks to all of you. Please, sit for the next 3 minutes because we still have 2 minutes now to go. Thanks for being on time. What are the next steps now? So first of all, you got a postcard already sitting there on your chair because this is not a goodbye. This is sort of auf Wiedersehen. So we see you back, hopefully, when we bring the mission to the Polish presidency to Poland and Sopot on 28th until 30th of April next year, and where we will again also, by the way, cooperate with the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, but also with the Polish Blue Economy Forum. And what is happening now is that we will actually, that is why we have also the voting process. So basically, if you are on social media, LinkedIn, etc., so these action points, the top 3 ones, of course, of the 7 themes, they are basically going out live stream actually still today. And of course, you will receive postal mails in your letterbox, so that we will, of course, also really disseminate these action points because they have been really voted upon, and I hope that they will eventually, you never know how these processes go, that they will sort of enter slowly also into your processes. That you can always take reference that these are not coming from the sky, but these have really been developed over the course of 2 days. I saw many of you taking pictures of slides, etc. Great, but it was not necessary because actually if you visit the BlueMissionBANOS website, let's say in 2 weeks' time, then you have a full documentation of all the workshops, of all this, everything which was discussed. And of course, then also beautified by this wonderful big picture. And, we had a photographer running around. You will have, access to beautiful photos of your discussions, etc., but only if you answer our questionnaire evaluating this event, and then you will sort of, actually also have access to those. So all these are our sort of processes. What is very important is, what I learned is that we haven't existed if we don't have a photo of all those who were really behind the scenes, who I cannot now sort of name everybody here who was involved in this organization. I just have to sort of simply say a big thanks to all the workshop organizers, all the rapporteurs, the North Sea BlueMissionBANOS team, the sponsors, the other projects, my wonderful submariner staff with whom it would not have been possible, the great team of Wicked Ground. But I would actually like to frame it into one single name, and I would really like to ask you to give her a huge round of applause. Franny, where are you? Because without Franny Klatt, Yeah, thanks a lot, because, you know, here we are up and speaking and saying all types of intelligent or less intelligent words, but I think really we should also appreciate the engagement, the many young people, etc., who are really working very, very strong and hardly on mission implementation, who are behind the scenes and not so much on, you know, up here on the panel. So thanks a lot to all of you. Have a good way back. And for those who feel that they were part of the organizing team, please come up here now for our joint photo. And thanks to all of you. Have a good way back. Yeah, thanks.